Good morning. How's everybody doing?
That's good, man. We had some false alarms this week.
Yeah,
Yeah. The
baby's
day,
holding out.
I know. I was getting all excited so many times too. I mean, some of the times I was like, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Is this really happening? But
That's funny.
yeah. All right.
All right.
My wife would love your glasses. Those are cute.
These are like my blue light filter glasses, so
I
they're
think
not
then she has
even.
the same ones then. Those are-
Yeah, they're Amazon. They're like Thursday I wore them. I just had a terrible headache, and I was thinking maybe that's what it was. So I
yeah,
don't know.
she's on her computer all the time for work, and I think those are the same ones.
All right, let me get settled for a minute. So I'm checking on the practice test that I sent you guys an email about yesterday. I'm checking your results on that because some of you did not do that assignment, and it is imperative that you do it before Wednesday so we know that your technology works. So I have I do not have results from a couple of you, but from most of you, I do. All right, so let's talk for a minute. Okay. So, today I want to talk to you a little bit about, hold on. It's a Mindfulness Monday, but it's going to be a little bit different. It is technology tips and being kind to your eyes. So, right now, I don't know about you, I definitely know that I'm spending a lot more time in front of a screen than I was. When I was in a face-to-face class, I didn't have to stare at a screen to have a conversation with you. But now I do. And that is really hard on your eyes. I'm putting a document in the chat right now for you, and I'm going to share it with you on this screen. So when we shifted to online learning, a lot of people started noticing that they had eye strain and like migraines or blurry vision after they've been on the screen for a long time. So our Disability Resource Services Department put together a list of some free resources and tools that you could use to get help on that. And for example, voice typing. Is anyone writing papers in their classes? Yeah. And staring at that screen or editing on the screen can really, really be hard on your eyes if you do it for a long time. So if you do voice typing, you can at least initially write your paper without staring at the screen and typing. So this might be a good strategy for you. Google Docs has built-in voice typing to it. So you should be able to access that. I've never done it, but I'm gonna try now that I see this. There's also a lot of Chrome extensions that you can get. Microsoft Word has a speech recognition. Windows 10 has one. Office has one, and then there's voice dictation on a Mac. If you notice that this is going to be an issue for a lot longer, I know it goes much faster with voice. I love it. I love it. Except for you do have to edit carefully, right? Yeah. Yeah. You just have to edit carefully after that. But that's okay. At least you didn't have to look at the screen the whole time you were writing it. Yeah. If you notice that you want to use this long term, you could buy a product called Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is a little bit better. It's probably better with an accent as well. Dragon Naturally Speaking kind of customizes to you. So that's a little better, but it's not free. Also screen lighting. Does anyone use Flux to adjust their screen? Nice. Lee does. I have never used it, but other people do, and it can reduce the blue light coming in, and it adjusts the color of your screen throughout the day, right? With the depending on the light that's changing, which can help. You can look at your Windows 10 display settings, or you can change your screen brightness on your Mac as well. Kurzweil is another text to speech, which might help you. And it gives you directions on how to get access to Kurzweil because it's free for all Maricopa students and employees. And then we have some voiceover and things like that. So the other thing that you might do is you could use just blue light filter glasses like I have on right here. I bought these on Amazon. I think they were $10 and they do make a difference. Um, I especially I'm in front of my computer screen a ton and I do a headache and sometimes I just can't even figure out where that headache came from. And most of the time that's where it's from. It's from that computer screen. So take care of your eyes. That's our mindfulness Monday for today. Okay. I put the doc in the chat, but it'll also be hooked in our slides as well. Okay. Now let's go to reviewing some Z-score information. Okay. So Z-scores, remember the empirical rule is what we're talking about. And that's really when it's 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations exactly above or below the mean. But Z-scores help us when it's not exactly one of those, right? When it's in between those, we can calculate a Z-score. And remember, when we're talking Z-scores, we are discussing where our population mean is 0 and our standard deviation is 1. That's our standard normal. Okay. So that's what we're talking about when we look at that. Remember, if the Z-score is 0, that means it is the mean. If it's positive, it's above the mean. If it's negative, it's below the mean, right? We're okay with all that so far. Then we'll we'll do some practice on how we find our Z-scores, okay, and go from there. This formula for the Z-score, hopefully you're familiar with it by now doing your homework. The Z is equal to X minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. That formula will be on your quiz, like you'll see it on the screen. I'm not trying to make you memorize it. It'll be there for you. Now, most of you probably know it already just from doing your homework, but just in case you're worried about memorizing it, you don't have to. It'll be provided to you. Okay. Remember, 68% of the scores are between a Z-score of -1 and +1, right? Because that's one standard deviation below and one standard deviation above the mean. 95% are between -2 and +2. And then 99.7 are between -3 and +3. Now, notice that I said it's possible to have a z-score that's bigger or smaller than 3. It's just less likely, right? Okay, so you could have a z-score of -3.8, but it's just going to be much more rare. Okay. All right, so let's look at this. This is not a trick. This is just seeing if you're paying attention and you're kind of understanding what it's asking you in this question. So I lost my Apple Pencil. That's so sad. Okay, so on this first one, it says, what is the z-score of x equals 12 if it's 2 standard deviations to the right of the mean? So the information is there for you. What's the z-score of x equals 12 if it's 2 standard deviations to the right of the mean? So when it says to the right of the mean, we know it's a positive value, right? Because it's to the right of the mean. When it says it's 2 standard deviations to the right of the mean, that means that our z-score is +2. Makes sense? Because it said it's 2 to the right of the mean. All right. So now read number 2, and then I'll just call on you randomly. Read number 2. So what is a z-score of x equals 9 if it's 1.5 standard deviations to the left of the mean? Okay, so to the left of the mean. So think about it for a minute. All right, so since it says left, we know that it's going to be negative, right? Correct. I shouldn't say right. I should say correct. Okay, so since it's to the left, we know it's going to be negative. Now, what value would you say it is? What z-score would you say it is? Any idea?
1? No, it's a 1.5.
Annie, what do you think?
-1.5?
Yeah, -1.5, because it tells you right here. If it's 1.5 standard deviations below the mean, then that, or to the left of the mean, that means a z-score of -1.5. Okay, so that's what you're looking for in these types of problems. So in the next one, if the, what's the z-score of x equals -2 if it's 2.78 standard deviations to the right of the mean? Ruki, what do you think on that one?
2.78.
You got it, 2.78, because it's already positive because it says to the right. Excellent. You're like, put a lot of these on the test. I know how to do these, right? Yeah, I feel you right there. Okay. What is the z-score of x equals 7 if it's 0.133 standard deviations to the left of the mean? Matt?
-0.133.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea here is just, are you understanding what it's telling you? That's it, right? We're not really deciphering any secret code or anything. Okay. Any questions on those? All right. So can you calculate a z-score? This one will get ready in the chat. Okay. So I say, suppose a variable is approximately normally distributed with a mean of 12 and a standard deviation of 6. What is the z-score of x equals 2? And I should probably add in here, round to the nearest, oh, we'll just say round to 2 decimal places. So get that ready in the chat. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so negative 1.67, that would be rounded to 2 decimal places or to the nearest hundredth. Okay, any rounding questions? Anyone stuck on that? If you round incorrectly, you're going to lose some points on the test. So make sure you ask me questions on that. Anyone have questions on that rounding? All right, let's do another one. The variable is approximately normally distributed. The mean is -1 and the standard deviation is 2. What's the z-score of x equals 2? Get it ready in the chat, but don't hit enter yet. All right, 3. Was that too fast? Okay, sorry. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Nice. And that one you didn't have to round, right? There you go. So 1.5. And remember, think about that. What that means is then that score is 1.5 standard deviations above the mean. Okay. Or to the right of the mean. Okay. That's what that's telling us. Okay. Here's one. Again, this is just interpreting. We're not trying to be tricky here. In a normal distribution, x equals 5, z equals -1.25. This tells you that x equals 5 is how many standard deviations, and is it to the right or to the left? Think about that for a second. All right. So what brave soul can fill in this blank for me? Here and here.
I think it's 1.25 and it's to the left of the mean.
Very nice. It's 1.25 and it's to the left of the mean because it says a negative value. Sorry. It has a negative value right here and it's our z-score is 1.25. Very nice, Lee. All right. The second one, if x equals -2 and z equals 6, it tells you that x equals -2 is how many standard deviations, and is it to the right or to the left? Josh, what do you think on that one?
I think the standard deviation's 6, and then it would be 8 to the right.
And it'd be to the right. Excellent. Now, I love how you were like, 6, because doesn't a standard deviation or a z-score of 6 seem way too big?
Yeah, it is. It's supposed to be like smaller than that, like 1 or 2.
Yeah,
Like
it should be between -3 and +3. Anything above or below that would be super rare. Now, it's not impossible, but a z-score of 6 sounds like something's wrong to me, right? Like it's an outlier or some weirdness is happening. Okay, so good job. I love how you questioned that, Josh. You were like, that doesn't seem right. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to work on a document about systolic blood pressure. And if I look through our class, we have lots of people going into nursing or something like that, right? So this applies to you directly. If you think about why do we ever need, right, z-scores or z-tables, that kind of thing. So you're going to work in your teams. You can divvy up the work if you want, but I'm going to put the document in the chat for you. You can work on paper. I don't care if you work on this document, because remember, when you work on the test, you have to work on paper, right? You can't work on an electronic document because the lockdown browser will keep you in just the test and then the calculators that I let you use. But I'm going to pull up this document so you can see it. So we'll go over what we're talking about first. So it says the systolic blood pressure given in millimeters of males has an approximately normal distribution with a mean of 125 and a standard deviation of 14. Systolic blood pressure for males follows a normal distribution. Now, once you know that, it says draw out the normal distribution. So what that means is it wants you to draw that curve. Okay. I want you to draw that curve on there. And then it wants you to put a title. It wants you to put your horizontal labels of your mean and then plus or minus 3 standard deviations and your z-scores. Make sure you put units on there. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 says, okay, calculate z-scores for a blood pressure of 100, a systolic blood pressure of 100, and then 150. So 2 z-scores, and you round to 2 decimal places. After you find those z-scores, you're going to answer question 3. If a male friend of yours said that he thought his systolic blood pressure was 2.5 standard deviations below the mean, but he thought his blood pressure was between 100 and 150, how would you respond to him? Is that accurate or is that not accurate, and why? Okay. So does everybody understand what you're supposed to be doing? All right. So make sure you have that document so you can access it. I'm going to put you in your breakout rooms, and then I'll come and check on you guys in a few minutes, but then we'll share out our information all together. Okay. So let me get you in your rooms. You can start working right now. And V's not here, Danessa and Tanisha, just so you know. She's not here today. All right, so go ahead and work on that, and then I'll come visit your rooms in just a minute. We're just waiting for everyone to come back. All right. Everybody made it back. Hooray. I'm so excited. Who wants to just hold up to their screen if they did it on paper, their number 1, so we can look at it and make sure everybody did it right. Oh, look, Josh has got his up there. Let me make it very big so I can see it. Excellent. You got all those labels. I see your title on there. Very nice. You probably want to draw like somewhat of a curve on there, like this, you know, a bell-shaped curve on there. And then the only thing I can't see, Josh, and maybe it's there and I just couldn't see it. Do you have millimeters labeled next to your systolic? Oh, look at that. He's like, don't take off points for me there. Let me tell you. Okay. So good job. Okay. So excellent. Make sure everybody look at their graph right now. Do you have a title? Excellent. Do you have the mean labeled as well as 1, 2, 3 standard deviations above and below labeled with the systolic blood pressure and millimeters listed somewhere there? And then the Z-scores with Z labeled somewhere there. Everybody have that? Those are the little, what?
Where would the Z-score thing go?
It would be right under the your systolic blood pressure scores. So like you have right in the middle, you have the 125. Right below it, it should say 0. And then off to the right, you can just say Z scores if you want.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay, good. Those are the little nitpicky things that I look for on the test that you need to be sure that you know, pay attention to detail on that. Okay, good. And then on number 2, I think I checked with every group. Make sure you're rounding correctly. You got Z equals 1.78, sorry, 1.79. And let me share my screen, and negative 1.79, correct? Okay. Any rounding questions on that? There's mine. Okay. And then the last question, are you guys okay with that you found, first of all, he's not correct. He has a problem, right? Either his blood pressure isn't really 2.5 standard deviations below the mean, or it's not between 100 and 150. Because were you all able to calculate that his systolic blood pressure, if it was 2.5 standard deviations below the mean, was 90 millimeters? Any questions on how to get that? Okay. So we finished this. This is awesome practice. Now, what we didn't talk about was the area under the curve, right? So we didn't look at a Z table yet, right? Remember how we did that on Thursday? So if it said what percent of systolic blood pressures are above, what was your 2 standard deviations above the mean? What was it? 125 plus 153. So what percent of the the systolic blood pressures are above 153? That's when you would look at your table, right? And you would look at the Z-score on your table. Yeah. So if it asks for area under a curve or what percent, then you look at your Z table. When we're just talking Z-scores like we were right now, we can just compute them. Okay. I do have another worksheet, but let me tell you about it. I decided that I didn't want to bog you down with a ton of stuff to do. So remember how I reopened all your statistics more homework? That was your mini lessons or your homework, and you have until tomorrow night to do all those. Yeah, so a lot of you need to focus on that because you missed a lot of assignments. Others of you didn't miss any, so you're like, I'm good. So what you should be focused on is the review for tomorrow, the statistics review. Yes, because that is the item that's most similar to the test, the statistics review. So you should do all of that you can tonight. And then when you come into class tomorrow, we'll go over it in class and I'll be able to answer any questions for you. Okay, because then you're going to take the test on Wednesday. That being said, some of you want more practice with Z-scores, right? Because you finished your more homework already and whatever. So this assignment I put on Canvas as extra credit. Okay. That means you don't have to do it. It's not going to hurt your grade if you don't do it. You also have to know that it's not going to boost your grade a whole lot if you do it. So don't skip doing the makeup assignments that you missed because this will not make up. This one extra credit assignment will not make up for your 10 missing assignments. Okay, does that make sense? So do not do any extra credit assignments until your original assignments are complete because it will not help you as much as you think. So one other extra credit assignment I put up there is, do you remember when we did our quizzes on percent in class? That little game we played? Yeah. I made one for statistics. Again, it's not required. It's extra credit. So don't do it if you're behind. Only do it if you need extra practice. Okay? After you're done with your homework. So does anybody have any questions on what those assignments that I just explained? All right. So that being said, what is due? Get your more S6 homework done. Don't forget about it. You also make sure you do as much of that statistics review as you can. And then this exit ticket can be a little tricky. In my last class, only 2 students got it correct. So please read it carefully. There's a Z table on there for a reason. Okay. Read it carefully and work your way through it. And I'm going to put the exit ticket in the chat too. So if you want it, and then I'm just going to be quiet here unless you guys have any questions. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, get to studying. I know I give you plenty of work to do and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Are we going to be spending all of class tomorrow working on the statistics review?
We're going to be going over it. So you
Okay.
should have it done already. And then we're going to go over any questions you have. I'm going to give you the key.
Okay.
So you can grade your own. And then we're going to spend the entire class period reviewing.
All right.